Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Marla Billinghurst. I will be chairing the panel this afternoon. With me on the panel today are Linda McFadden and Valerie Warren. Representing the assessment department will be Corinne DeRockany, and the administrative personnel for this afternoon is Tristan Braden. You will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Excuse me. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. And the Board of Revision is appointed annually by council and is independent of it and the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony, followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. And once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today, and the session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing item number 3 on our docket today. Mr. Breeden, please affirm the assessor's and the applicant's testimony.
Certainly. Madam Assessor, please state your full name.
Corinne DeRockany.
Do you affirm the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. Mr. Applicant, you can start. Please state your full name.
Robert McLaughlin.
Do you affirm the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you very much. Ms. DeRockany, please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For file number 24-604, roll number 010018750000 for the address of 3818 Wilkes Avenue. We are defending the assessed value of $1,565,000 for the 2025 roll year based on the reference date of April 1, 2023. There's a breakdown of $245,000 for the classification of 10, and for the classification 60, we have a value of $1,320,000. It consists of 3 buildings with 2 premises, 1 story. We have an actual year build of 1967 to 1974 with an effective year build of 1973. A wall height of 12 feet. Leasable area of 8,740 square feet with a land to plan area of 30.45. Maps are provided on page 3 showing its location. West side of the city near Charleswood, close to the perimeter. Exterior photos are provided on page 4 and 5. Page 6 has our rent comparables. There are net rents from the market in which our model is based off of. We've provided 6 rent comparables, all storage warehouses like the subject, with leasing starting in 2018 to 2022, an area range of 7,200 to 9,518 square feet, wall height of 16 to 28 feet, an effective year build of 1963 to 1980, and a net rent of $6.23 to $26.67 per square foot. Land comparable sales are provided on page 7 with their aerial views following it. We have provided 5 land comparable sales with an area range of 224,899 to 653,069 square feet, with a sale price of $4.87 to $12.62 per square foot. We have our subject at $1.37 per square foot. The first income stream is located on page 10. We have the additional land value of $245,000. We only are valuing the land value. We are not assessing the structure itself, only the land that it sits on. The second income stream is on page 11, providing our income workup. The premise of 8,740 square feet has a rent of $9.76 per square foot, provide a potential rent of $85,302. We've reduced that by a vacancy loss of 4.5%, plus expenses at 3%, with the shortfall at $4 per square foot. This gives us the net operating income of $77,446. We've capitalized that at 6.15%. Which generates our capitalized value of $1,259,285, with the additional land value of $61,000. Totals our final value of $1,320,000. You will find our capitalization rates on page 13, in which provide the industrial range of 5.35 at the 20th percentile to 7.30 at the 80th percentile. Our 6.15 is within this range. Page 15 through 25 is the income and expense questionnaire provided to us. Page 20 advises partially owner occupied and advised a gross income of $4.94. Based on this evidence, we believe that the assessed value of $1,565,000 to be fair and equitable, and ask for it to be confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. McLaughlin, do you have any questions for the assessor regarding her evidence?
I do. Madam Chair, the assessor mentioned 2 premises. Which are the 2 premises?
Mr. Applicant, you're not asking me questions. You're asking, this is your opportunity to ask the assessor questions about her evidence.
But it's usually through the chair. I thought I'll direct my questions.
No, it is not.
I'm sorry. You've mentioned 2 premises. What are the 2 premises?
It would be the 2 income streams. So the 1 apartment and then the storage warehouse.
So the house and the warehouse.
Correct.
Okay. On your evidence, you indicate 2 addresses. Are you aware that the addresses are incorrect? The 3818 is the house, and the commercial aspect is 3824, the back part. And that's for mail only. Just a correction. You said that based on the evidence you provided, you're supporting $1,565,000 as an assessment. What market evidence brings you to that conclusion?
It is model generated. That's how it works.
So it's nothing. Did you inspect the property?
I did not know.
Did they submit questionnaires in response to the request every year?
The one I have in front of me, we did receive. I'm not 100% on the previous years, but
Well, on the front, yeah. My understanding is that they provide them every year. Would you agree?
But I did not look at the history, but that's the case. That's great. But
So you've requested information, but you did not use the information provided. Is that true?
like I said, it's model generated. And in pertaining to the house itself, we didn't add that to our evaluation, just the land only.
Just the land. And your evidence indicates land value at $344,000 per acre average?
So the land that the structure is on, that's 245,000. The 61,000 added to the storage warehouse, that's due to the surplus land.
Surplus land. And you've not seen it. Are you aware that that's vacant land? That last portion that you called surplus land is vacant land, not used? I didn't hear you.
Yes, correct. I believe we were aware of that.
The zoning.
Sorry?
Are you aware of the zoning?
We have it as agricultural zoning.
Agricultural. Can you explain to me then why the back portion, which is vacant land, is not classified as agriculture or farm?
Actually, they haven't come to our attention about a change. With that being said, it's one full roll, so it would have to be looked at and have it possibly partially changed. That hasn't been brought to our attention previously.
You've valued the house at $245,000. You would agree that a house is not $245,000, not in 23 or current?
I disagree with this is land only value.
All right. I have no further questions.
Thank you very much. Ms. McFadden, do you have any questions?
I do, Madam Chair. Your comparables on page 6, which are the warehouse comparables, are those comparables also comparables with no access to sewer and water?
That is a good question. I would presume that they do have access to sewer and water, but
So that should affect the value of the warehouse portion, should it not? Like the amount of rent that it could be generated, would the model take that into consideration? The fact that there's no sewer and water there?
the model would, yeah. The comparables, for sure. I would agree with you. They would be higher than the subject in this case. But for this subject, the model would have that in mind.
Okay, so if you were looking at those comparables, the rents are, half of them are significantly lower, one of them is the same, and only 2 are sort of above. So does that not make you think that the rent the model has generated might be a bit on the high side?
To be fair, it is difficult to find a very good comparable, especially in regards to the zoning itself.
Sure.
Yeah, and I mean, there's done a bunch of different aspects, same with different market regions. I believe the Chevrier one is in the same market region, but definitely difficult to find really good comparables.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Warren, do you have any questions?
My question was just answered. Thank you.
Thank you. My question was actually answered as well. So thank you very much. All right, Mr. Applicant, please proceed with your presentation.
All right, may take a moment to introduce myself. I'm Rob McLaughlin. I was a commercial assessor between 1986 and 2006. For the last 15 years, I'm a realtor. Been in and out of the border revision many times. So I'm very familiar with the process and what the assessor's up against. The assessor, everything is done generally on mass appraisal, but when it comes to the board, it's usually site specific. In this particular instance, I've appeared here on different properties where they did not provide a questionnaire, they did not answer the questions of the city in a timely manner, and were penalized for that. In this particular instance, they got the information, but they did not use it. And yet, there's no penalty for the city on this particular aspect. They've given you everything they've got, and yet you don't use it. I don't know how it's not market value. I mean, if they could get more rent, they certainly would. And they can't get more rent. Now, if I can draw your attention to my brief, the front page, I've shown you 2024, and 2024 is relevant as far as taxes and how it was assessed. The class code 10, which is the house, is $216,000. The remainder is $1 million. And you can see that the residential portion is portioned at 45%. The tax out of that is $2,310.
Sorry, what are you referring to?
My front page of my brief.
Which page?
Front page.
The front page says addendum.
You got them backwards. The heading just says border revision. I don't know what you're looking at.
Sorry, I'm having a small technical issue. Sorry. Sorry.
I don't think we have the same document.
I think I'm missing it.
So nobody else has that either?
No,
I sent both documents. I sent the addendum and I sent the brief in the same email.
all we have is the addendum.
Yes.
Well, I did my part. What will we do now?
Okay, we are going to take a brief recess.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Mr. McLaughlin, please proceed with your presentation.
Okay, if I may, Madam Chair. I'll start with my brief. With the heading border revision at the top. We are seeking a reduction in value as a revision of the classification of this property to reflect the zoning and the split residential commercial use. Now, what I've used for an example, and I realize it's not an appeal, but part of this becomes relevant, is the 2024 assessment, which is based on a 21 market value. It's got a class code 10, which is the house at $216,000. And it's portioned at 45%. Class code 60, which is everything else, is portioned at 65%. You can see that the taxes on the commercial part is quite high because the portioning is a lot higher. And we have a total tax bill of $23,112. So the current assessment that we're dealing with today is class code 10, $245,000, and class code 60, $1,320,000. And you can see that the effect on the taxes based on the classification is huge. What I'm recommending is a reduction from $1,565,000 down to $928,000 based on the following: class code 10 at $400,000, class code 60 at $404,000, and the excess land classified at agriculture at $124,000. And you can see the portioning and how that would make a huge difference in the taxes paid by the property owner. If I can draw your attention to my addendum, and then I guess number 7, the neighbor. Now, I realize I'm not comparing assessments, I'm just showing that the neighbor is treated exactly how I'm asking you to treat this particular assessment. The neighbor has,
Yes, we don't look at assessments of other properties.
well, I'm not asking you to look at the assessment, I'm asking you to look at the classification. I'm not comparing assessments here, I'm just showing you that the neighbor is at this, exactly the same situation. They have residential 1 at 426,000. They have farm, which is vacant land at the back at 192,000, and they have other, which is usually commercial. So they've broken this, the neighbor has broken the assessment down into 3 different components, classification components, and that's what I'm asking you to do. This is not unusual, this is what's going on right next door. I'll draw your attention to the next page, page 2 of my brief. Now, what I've done is I've broken it down into 3 components. The first component is the residential. Well, the assessor has used $245,000. It is a 1,400 square foot home with a multiple attached garage and a 24 by 24 detached garage. Now, if you've been paying attention at all to what the real estate market is, you'll know that there's no way you could ever buy a property for $245,000 like this. This is on almost an acre. So what I've done is I've looked through the Charleswood area at similar sized homes and come up with a price per square foot. And the price per square foot that I've come up with, and I have included in my addendum, the sales, we can go through that later. The range is $274 per square foot to $414 a square foot. So 1,437 times 278 gives us a square $400,000 for the class code 10. And I'm recommending or asking that the classification 10 be $400,000 for this particular property, which is what this type of house would reasonably sell for. The commercial component, if I can draw your attention to, I guess, page 3, my first picture. This is the residential part of it. The site is 0.96 acre. It's the house, the attached garage on the right-hand side, and then across the road, you can see a 24 by 24 detached garage. So there's multiple garages. And if you look right on the right-hand side, there is a fence. On that fence, it tells you that the address is 3824. That's for the commercial component. The residential component is 3818, as I said earlier. So we've got a defined residential area and we have a defined commercial area. Turn to page 4 of my brief, and you can see the commercial area. Now this, as part of my brief, is 2.35 acres. And I know it's 2.35 acres because I know it's 134 feet wide, and I actually measured the site. So I know what the residential component is, and I know what the commercial component is. The back was so full of snow I couldn't get to it. So whatever's left over is the farm component. Now for that particular, and I should say that this property was built in and about the 70s, the warehouse. The one on the left-hand side is a wood frame building with a gravel floor, very minimal light. There is no heat. And the other one is more of a mechanic repair garage sort of thing. The thing that encumbers or this property is the zoning. It's agriculture. Now they have been able to get a light manufacturing adjustment, but it doesn't attract any tenants that wanted to pay the kind of market rent that the assessor is suggesting. Because it's light manufacturing, it's very limited as to what they can put in there as far as the tenant. And it's not able to achieve the rents anywhere close to what the market is or what the assessor suggested is. So if you look further, right to the end there, you can see the tower at the back. Well, where the trailer is, that's where there's another fence. And after that fence is I'm suggesting agriculture, vacant land. And that is 3.55 acres. The next page will show you an aerial view. It's the one right in the middle. The one right in the middle is the subject property. Ending kind of where the line is after the pond on the right-hand side. The neighbor on the left-hand side or to the west is the one that I was comparing to, and you'll notice that they have vacant land in the back. On page 4 of my picture, you can see the cloth Quonset house that is probably commercial. And then there's a house at the beginning. So the neighbor on the west is exactly the same makeup as the subject property, where it's residential, commercial, and farm. So go back to my page 2. As I said, the owner has presented or sent answered the questionnaire and sent in the leases. On the left-hand side of the middle of my page where it says commercial income approach, I'm using PAD as the property assessor assessment department. That's their valuation, and that's what they've come up with. Actually, it's not correct. On the right-hand side is the actual rent that's paid. And it's a gross rent. It's $45,360 as opposed to the assessor's $85,302. Deduct from that the taxes. In order to get to a net rent, we have to get rid of the taxes. The owner paid the taxes for the commercial component. So I've deducted $18,000, which is reasonable for the taxes on the commercial component. That leaves a net rent of $27,360. Less the 4.5% vacancy, less the 3% for expenses and shortfall, we come up with a net income of $24,822. Capitalized at the 6.15% as per the assessor's brief, we have a value of $403,610, rounded to $404,000. That's what this property generates. That's what the value is based on the income that it generates. That's, if they could achieve more, they certainly would. The tenant that's in there, actually, it recently sold vacant. There was no tenant in the property, but the previous tenant was paying $45,360. Now we go to the excess land. Before I do that, let's go to my addendum, and let's go to number 3 at the top. Just to show you the residential component, I've used 4 sales, and they range from $274,000 per square foot to $416 a square foot. It's hard to get ones with double garages or multiple garages, so all I've done is ask for. I compared them, similar sized house, built prior to 1980, like the subject, and with a double detached garage. And this is what they're selling for: $274, $301, $415, $416. I used $278, and only to make it a round number of $400,000. The next page, which would be number 4, I guess, is my land sale. And this will come into play for the excess land. Now, I did not go all over Hell's Half Acre to find land sales. I found local sales in Charleswood, similar sized, 4 to 9 acres. And this is how they've sold. $35,294 an acre, $42,500 an acre, $31,048. I've used the average, and the average is $35,300 per acre times the residual area of 3.55 acres, gives us a value of $124,000. So we have $400,000 residential, which I think is reasonable and pretty hard to deny that the house would be worth $400,000. I have 404,000, which is the value based on the income the property actually generates. And it generates that because of the limitation of the zoning, the agricultural zoning. And then the excess land is 3.55 acres at 35,300 per acre, and that gives us $124,000. So our total is $928,000. I will report, and I realize this is not relevant, but it is true that I was the realtor. I sold this particular property in the fall last year, so it's past the reference year.
Yes, so we can't look at that
The
evidence.
asking price was $945,000 and it sold for $1 million, $1,011,000. It never was, never
Can
ever close to
anyone hear me
1.2
or am I
million.
on mute?
Pardon me?
Oh, you can hear me. Okay, I said we can't look at that evidence because it's post-reference and you just kept talking.
My point being is it never did have a value of 1.2, and it certainly doesn't have a value of 1.5. There is the assessor has provided no actual sales evidence. I mean, the land values that she provided is 433,000 an acre. This property would be worth $3 million based on that land value alone. There's no recognition at all to the house. It's all commercial. And the fact that they've classified so little to class code 10, which is residential, and so much to class code 60 is backbreaking as far as the taxpayer goes. The taxes on this particular property were $23,000. That's just about all the rent they collected from the commercial enterprise. It's unfathomable. It's not correct, and this is the correct number, Madam Chair. Based on the comparison to the neighbor as far as classification, this is not unusual. There's an agricultural component, there's a residential component, and there's a commercial component. And I'm asking you to recognize that, as I have done in my brief, and reflect that in your decision. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you very much. Madam Assessor, do you have any questions for the applicant regarding his evidence?
Thank you. In regards to your residential aspect, I'm seeing the 4 here. Would you suggest that your comparables are inferior to the subject property in
No.
regards to the lot size and square footage?
Well, the square footage, I've stated in my opening thing there that they're all less than half an acre. They are inferior. So that makes them worth less, not more. I'm not sure what your point is.
No, that's okay.
They're similar in age, so they're not 2x6 construction. They're not tri-pane windows originally constructed, because that started in about 82. They're similar properties in Charleswood. Inferior in as much, or superior in as much as they're residentially located, not on a busy street like Wilkes.
What do you have the square footage for the subject residential home? Out of curiosity.
Well, it's there. It's 1,437 square feet. Now, there was an addition put on back in the 70s. That included the attached garage.
Another question I had was in regards to your sales. I'm not seeing the dates on them. In your addendum, the residential sales, do you happen to have the dates?
For each of them, no. Shoot. They're all prior to April 1st. When asking for sales from the MLS, it was everything prior to April 1st, 23.
That's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. McFadden. Do you have any questions for the applicant?
So you talked about the separate addresses, suggesting that from your view, these should actually be treated as two separate roll numbers. Are they legally subdivided?
They are not. It was like, I said in the beginning, before the confusion about my brief, that the second address was specifically for the commercial enterprise. So mail delivery would go there rather than to the house.
Okay. And has the owner made application to the city to have the surplus land treated as farm?
We're doing that here.
And
It's zoned agriculture.
yeah, that's a separate and apart issue. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the assessor, I believe there is a process for lands outside or lands that are considered agricultural to be treated that way by the tax system.
Correct. It would be a process to have it looked at.
That would be an application process to assessment and taxation, correct?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ware. And do you have any questions for the applicant?
No, I was concerned with the same thing, but it's been answered. Thank you.
Thank you. My questions were actually answered as well. So I have no questions. Is there a need for a brief summary from either party?
If I may, the classification of a property, I've appealed the classification of a property. I've shown you that the neighbor is classified in the same way that I'm requesting this property to be classified. It's an omission on the city's part for them not to have done the same thing to the neighbor. When they were like, they've got all the information, they've got the aerial footage. There is absolutely no way that this property should have been. I mean, I'm sure that the neighbor appealed at one point and got it changed to a different classic code. Why else would it happen? This has always been vacant land. It's fenced off. It's defined. There's no way, no how it's part of the commercial enterprise. The assessor has the ability to change the classification of this property. There's no, this is the process here. I'm asking you to consider the class code 30 or agricultural classification for this particular property.
Okay, thank you very much. We have heard all the matters scheduled for today, and this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you and good afternoon, everyone.